Thank you so much. What an honor, what an incredible crowd. Give yourselves a round of applause. This is an incredible county dinner. To our two Madam Chairwomen tonight, great to be with you, Governor, and so many honored guests. It's wonderful to see Maxwell Frost in person. We cheer hard for you from Ohio, Congressman. I'm normally not intimidated by speaking in front of a crowd, but that music really freaked me out, Congressman. That was a really tough hook. So I'm going to get to the point. With the risk of being a little bit of a downer for a little while, I want to ask us all a question. Do we feel like we're sort of going through the same thing the last generation or so? Where we have this incredible moment. We can remember, some of us at least, the moment in Chicago in 2008 when the Obamas won and we celebrated because we had won the entire battle for democracy. You all remember that, how it felt? And then we had a moment where it was interrupted by the January 6th, but we won, Biden won, and we won Georgia, and we'd saved democracy, right? And then you remember the moment a few months after that win in 2020, in a few years after the win in Chicago that we celebrated, the sense that, well, we thought we had won, but it doesn't feel like it anymore. That somehow we won the battle that we thought we were supposed to win, but then democracy still felt like it was sinking, and there was nothing we could do about it, it just kept falling. Do you feel that way? I mean, do you see that? Do you feel that? Mm-hmm. And then ask ourselves, well, why would that happen? How do you have a strategy, our prior speaker, a battle plan that you thought was the winning plan, but after you win that battle, only months after, in 2021, after January 6th was over, you saw the states around this country, like Florida and Ohio, attacking democracy. And you have to start asking yourself, how do you have a battle plan that you won and then you still feel like you're losing? That's why I wrote the books that Susan mentioned. Could it be that the other side's battle plan is fundamentally different from ours? That while we are focusing on a few swing states for federal elections, they're focused elsewhere? Could it be that while we have for too long, until very recently, taken democracy for granted, they did not take it for granted. In fact, they understand, as your state's attorney is experiencing right here, that democracy can be undermined. That there are institutions far beyond what Marjorie Taylor Greene has her hands on, far beyond Mar-a-Lago, other institutions that can fiercely undermine democracy in the wrong hands. Could it be that while we've been confident that our positions that we lay out there are generally supported by the majority, that they understand that their positions, be it Rick Scott's positions on Social Security, or Mehmet Oz thinking that abortion should come down to a woman, her doctor, and the local elected official, or that we should be banning books, or nothing that makes sense on guns, could it be that they know full well that all of their positions are toxic? It would never win in a fair democracy? And once you put together their understanding that their positions are a minority worldview that lose in Kansas and in Texas and will lose in Ohio this November and will lose in Florida, that abortion ban in Florida this November if that gets on the ballot. Once they have figured out, could this be that once they figured out that their positions are losers, that they also understand that democracy can be undermined, that their goal in life is not our goal, which is to go out and win elections saying what we're for. Their goal is to undermine democracy as much as they can and as much as they need to lock in positions that would otherwise lose in a fair democracy. Woo! Here's the bad news. The answer to my questions is absolutely. The other side, we talk too much about red and blue as if we're in the same battle. There are two battles in American politics. We are fighting for swing states in federal years, and they are going for broke for democracy itself. And they understand something that we've ignored for too long, as Susan said, which is the front line in the battle for democracy is not Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's the hundreds of people just like her in state houses that no one's ever heard of. The State House for them is the perfect institution. The perfect institution to do what I said. Lock into why, by the way? State houses control every single, we just heard about Sam Bell and all the work he did. State houses control every issue we care about, including the biggest hot potatoes and the most important issues in American politics today. State houses also control democracy itself. They can be used for good, and they can be used to suppress the majority, which is what they're doing in states across this country. The districting process can be used to create a representative democracy with accountability, or it can be used to gerrymander the whole damn thing. And with their view, this means that state houses are the perfect institution to win, suppress the vote of the majority they know doesn't agree with them, gerrymander that fuck out of these state houses. I'll take one more from you, Nikki. And then ram through an extreme agenda that no one wants. And so, bigger picture, our battle has been these federal swing states talking about things we know are popular. Their battle is the one I just described. Here's the problem that my 9 and 6-year-old who are just learning how to play soccer understand. What I have just described is a losing battle for us. They are always on offense in the states where we often aren't even running, because somehow we don't think it's important for the federal swing state math that we put together. And if they continue to be on offense in states like Florida and Missouri and Ohio and Wisconsin through state houses, and all we do is focus on a few swing states or federal elections, that sinking feeling that we're losing even when we think we're winning will continue, and it will get worse. They are right. We are in not a sort of little battle for federal offices, although we want to win them all, don't we? We are in the same battle for democracy that John Lewis was in and spent his whole life fighting for, that the suffragists were in. That's the battle we're in. That's their battle. It better be our battle. And the good news about a very sobering conclusion is that once you understand that we are in a battle for democracy itself, and the front line of that battle is the state houses of this country, all of a sudden it becomes actually clear what we're doing wrong and what we better do better. If it's not clear, then we're not paying attention. Once you come to the conclusion that I've come to, that I hope you will all come to, that we're in two battles. We've been fighting the narrow one, they've been fighting the one for democracy itself. We've got to shift to the democracy battle. Things become very clear. The first thing is it's a long battle. It's not just about the next cycle. It's not even just about cycles at all. It's the day in, day out work of fighting for democracy. You think John Lewis only cared about the election cycle? You think the suffragists only cared about elections? They couldn't even vote? Of course not. They knew the struggle for democracy was a never-ending struggle. And that you can make progress, by the way, even in tough years. And my best example of someone who understood the long battle for democracy was my good friend. I had to go to law school with her. I know you're going to think she must have taken classes this guy didn't take. I went to law school with Stacey Abrams. Now, who had a long game for democracy? Stacey Abrams in Georgia. Did she quit the first time the state was red in federal gear? Of course not. She kept fighting and fighting and fighting over decades. Her long game saved this country, didn't it, just a couple years ago? It is a long game for democracy. Everything we plan, everything we do has to be within that long game. Number two, I'll be real quick. I've got bad hearing, so I may not hear the music. Number two, once you realize it's a battle for democracy itself, my God, I hope you're all committed to fighting that battle in all 50 states. Woo! The idea that dozens of states are living like Ohio and Florida in this undemocratic extremist hell that we're going through, simply because we are not somehow blue states for a federal map, makes zero sense. Every American deserves to live in a democracy. And Democrats can no longer say to some states, sorry, you may not give us the U.S. Senate seat, so we're not even going to try. And what happens if we don't try? So it's just wrong. It deprives us of victories we might get. Look at Kansas last year. But when we don't battle in all states, what happens? The only people in the battle are the extremists. And look what's Obama won Iowa. He won Indiana. Clinton won Missouri. You wouldn't know it, would you, when you watch those states today? Because the only people in the battle are extremists, and those states are going through a downward spiral of extremism. We got to fight the battle for democracy in all 50 states. And then once we do that, number 3, in states, and this is tough. I don't want to make this sound easy. We have to fight the battle in every corner of every state, folks. They're literally running their entire extremist agenda through state houses, largely in uncontested districts. Do you know that 50% of the Tennessee Republicans who kicked the 2 justices out did not even have an opponent last November? 60% in Oklahoma, no opponent. Florida was 40%. They're running their entire agenda through these state houses, and it's like a super highway, and we too often are saying, go right on through. You literally get to continue being extremists if you can pay the filing fee. We're not even challenging you. And we wonder why they continue to be extremists. We have to run in every corner of every state. The damage being done when we leave all these extremists uncontested is incalculable to democracy. Can we do that here in Florida, folks? Our business as usual has to be, we literally, oh, we're here in Florida, we're here now. We run everywhere. That's just what we do. And every single person who runs in those tough districts, you don't ignore the call because you think they may lose. You pick up the phone and you say, you're a hero running in that district. You're taking someone on who hasn't had an opponent in several elections. Thank you. Like Stacey Abrams, every door you knock on, even if you lose, is progress in the battle for democracy. Thank you for running. How can we all help you? That has to be, we have to wrap these candidates with the value that we believe they are bringing by running in tough districts. And if we don't do that, of course, no one runs. And it gets worse and worse. Number 4, this is so much bigger than Donald Trump, folks. Most of the attack on democracy began because Obama won. As a long pattern in our history, when a diverse majority emerges in our country, there's a fierce backlash. And that's what this is about, folks. Trump is part of it. He made it worse. We cannot afford to let him be president, of course. But when we make everything about never Trump, as if he's the problem, we're giving cover to a whole lot of other Republicans who are attacking democracy as fiercely and sometimes more effectively we ever have. It's bigger than Trump. Lastly, my hope, my plea, once you realize that the battle for democracy is not some battle or a few swing states, but it's the battle to make sure we don't leave 60% of the seats uncontested in Oklahoma. It's the battle to fix voting laws in New York so we have a higher turnout and not ever elect George Santos again. It's the battle in California. It's the battle in Tennessee. Once you realize that it's not this very disempowering narrative of a few states for presidential years, but that the battle is everywhere. And that everyone in this country is on the front line of that battle. The Koch brothers have understood that for years. We've been blind to thinking it's only about a few swing states. My hope is it makes people realize, my God, there's so much more that all of us could do where we are. Now, we're in Florida, Ohio, we get a lot of attention, but everywhere. Because the front line is literally in every single state in this country. And so my hope is people see that and do a lot more and stop. We had this conversation with some young Democrats today. There's so much disempowering of our base and of our voters because they think the battle is somewhere else when it's actually right where they are. Now, why do I say all this? This sounds a little sobering to realize we're in a battle for democracy itself. But man, I find it uplifting because those are some mistakes I can fight for. But the other thing I want to say is I bring to you some optimism. You know, the truth is, as much as there's a sinking feeling, the Republicans are right about one thing. Their extremism is really unpopular. They used to hide it well, but now Marjorie Taylor Greene is the face of the place that Maxwell serves in. The primary between Ohio's Vivek and your DeSantis and Donald Trump, it's just a nightmare of extremism. The state houses can't even hide anymore. And we're starting to get organized at the state level like I say we should. And that's why, literally, think about it for a second. We have a hell of a winning streak building. You had it right here with your mayor's race, didn't you? Congratulations. Huge win when people didn't expect it. But it goes back beyond that. Kansas last August, we rallied, we supported abortion access 60-40, didn't we? In November, we flipped the Michigan and Pennsylvania state houses. Every election denier running for Secretary of State in the swing state of the country went down in flames last November. Then we roll into April, we win in Wisconsin. And then, thank you to all the help, we roll into August, and we win in Ohio. We thumped their terrible attack on democracy. We won 2 special elections earlier this week in New Hampshire and, where was that? Pennsylvania. We are on a winning streak because their extremism is so clear, and it's not popular, and we're starting to focus where we need to focus. And so my only plea of everyone here is keep it going. We cannot have another cycle. Of course we got to beat Trump. We're going to beat Trump, aren't we? We're going to beat that guy. But we can't only beat him because this is about more than just the presidency. This is about democracy. In 20, we beat Trump, and almost nowhere else did we win down the ballot. We cannot afford that ever again. Get everyone on the ballot in Florida you can get on the ballot for next year. In Ohio, in Wisconsin, in Oklahoma, and I've been in Oklahoma, I told them this. And then the extremism that they are basically expressing, run that contrast, not just Trump, Biden, run it all the way down the ticket. All the way down the ticket. Just like we've done for the last democracy winning streak. Don't let the presidential stuff and the Republican primary blind us to why we're on a winning streak. It's because we've been focusing at all levels. So and I'd love to come back and work with you as best I can. Get everyone on the ballot you can. Focus at all levels, highlight their extremism, highlight their attack on democracy, highlight the impacts of their attacks on democracy, like Dobbs, and we can not just win the presidency next year, keep the Senate and win the House back, we can actually continue a much more important winning streak long-term for democracy. Thank you all very, very much.